Are you okay? Welcome.
Then the next thing that happened. Oh my God.
Sorry, just let me hop
Right,
up
you
some
have to get it
mucus.
out. I know.
The winters are great here in Florence. No one's sick at all.
It's fine. You're gonna love it. Italy's amazing. All right, I can do this.
Let's start at the very beginning.
Yes. Tell me.
I get bombarded. You know the type of people. Mm-hmm. The people who are dreaming of what we're doing, what we have been doing,
Yes.
the struggle, the dream, Italy, moving here and making it work. And it's like this whole mystery that surrounds it, because there are obviously the TV shows, but then they're always done by people who don't actually live here. Like they just fly and they're like, oh, isn't it beautiful? Tuscany, Amalfi Coast.
Yeah.
And then there are the people who have Instagram, but it's like, here's a cute little Cinquecento and here's a beautiful plate of carbonara, and then it's like, yeah, but how are you emotionally?
Yeah, right. How do you feel?
What do you like at 3 a.m.?
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to ask you. Basically, give people some idea of the reality of moving to Italy and making it work, because I feel like we're at a certain stage in our relationship with Italy where we've both worked and been, well, I speak for myself here, like bankrupt at times, and then
Many times. Most of the time.
default position, yeah, and then had relationships with Italians, and then different cities as well. Like you're now moving to Florence.
Exactly. Yes.
Where did it all begin, Lauren? Where did it?
The journey. No. Everybody who moves here is somebody who has a dream and is a very romantic person.
Right.
Otherwise you don't move to Italy.
Yeah.
Because nobody is coming here to pursue their dream job and dream career.
Right.
They're coming here to pursue a dream lifestyle.
Right.
You know, because they've been to Italy and they've been captivated by the feeling of Italy.
Yes.
And it's like falling in love. So
Yes.
you feel this amazing, it's like a chemistry with Italy, and you need to come back and feel that way again. So if you're coming here, it's because you're someone who feels a lot. Not someone who's like, I'm gonna rationally think about this.
Right.
The thing is, when I moved here, I thought I was a rational person.
Did you?
Yes, I know. It's so, nothing is rational whatsoever about this, but in my mind, I was very rational, and I was gonna come here for 1 year, experience everything, and then go back and have real life.
Okay, right. And this was how many years ago?
And this was 9 years ago.
Right.
So the thing that I've been thinking a lot about in the last couple years working as a guide is that I meet people all the time who say, why did you move to Italy? And that's very easy to answer. And why did you stay in Italy? And that is harder to answer.
and sorry, side note, Lauren writes a blog which is really fantastic, Unlock Italy, and it's turning into a book. So that's why you've been recently revisiting all of these emotional highs and lows.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's really fresh in your mind, and that's why whenever we meet and you come over here, and we always inevitably start thinking like, oh wow, really? Has it been this long? And why stay?
Why are we doing this to us?
Why don't I give up? Yeah, no, because that's the same. We different paths, but we seem to have the similar sentiment of, okay, so I'm not going to give up though.
Yeah. I think if you are considering moving to Italy, first you need to try to be as prepared as possible. Learn Italian. Try to learn as much Italian as you can before coming.
Yeah.
But I didn't, and I had studied for like a few months by myself. So like obviously I didn't know anything. I could say ciao. So that was quite isolating at the beginning. So if I had spoken more Italian, obviously that would have been better. Be as prepared as you can, and then ready to accept that absolutely nothing will go as you've planned. Not like literally not one thing. And that's the beauty of it, that like opportunities will arise as you're here, and you have to be ready to take them and not be sort of fixed on one path and hoping that everything on your and your plan will come about, because that's just not how anything works here, or in life in general. I mean, I don't think anyone has a great plan and they do every part of that plan.
But then what changed after a year? Like, if the plan was just to be here for a year, something happened. Did you fall in love? Like, what?
I found at the end of the year that I could not go back. I was not ready to go back.
And you're from California, right?
And I'm from California, so quite
just to contextualize you and what you're going back to. You know?
From California, not a bad place, obviously, to be in. But I had finished college. I moved to Rome like 3 months after graduating from college.
And you studied what?
And I studied literature. And I started teaching English, which is what I always say is like the beginner thing to do when you move to probably most foreign countries. But I feel in Italy, jobs are already really hard to find.
A lot of people write and say, Kylie, I have this experience, or I'm a this, insert whatever occupation you have. Do you think I can make it in Italy? What are the jobs like? And I never know what to say to people, because the truth is that a lot of Italians are out of work. They've all got degrees. Most of them do speak English. So
the jobs are already incredibly hard to come across.
And poorly paid.
You know, they're not going to pay you enough anyways. And then you also have this visa situation if you're a foreigner that you have to consider. And so, I mean, I actually think that the two easiest things you could do would be an au pair or become an English teacher. And I haven't been an au pair, but I met many people that were, and they survived. They were still alive at the end.
It can be pretty degrading though sometimes,
I mean, it's really hard. The thing that's good about it is that you get a legal way to come here, a job that pays you, and a place to live in the family home. You know, then if you end up with a crazy family, then obviously it's a pretty challenging situation. Trying to get all your ducks in a row before you move here is, I don't think, very realistic unless you are working for the UN or someone who has like hired you from afar. But it's very difficult to get all of that done before you move over here, because so many jobs are word of mouth, and it's about who you know.
And apartments as well, right?
And apartments are about who you know.
To get the visa, you often need to have the rental agreement, which I find infuriating, because how can you possibly get an Italian to take you on board and say, I'm going to take you as a tenant? First of all, usually they don't speak English, these landlords of these, you know, these families have had them for generations. And then they're going to trust someone they've never met, which Italians would never do, because they love to meet in person. And then they've also got to be like, oh, take me on as a tenant, sign a lease. I haven't yet got a visa. I mean, it doesn't work.
And also
because I've tried.
If you want, exactly, because I'm sure both tried every way to get legal here, and it's not easy. I mean, it's like still a constant. Every year I have to renew my permit to stay, but I'm so grateful that I have one, because for the first 5 years I didn't have one.
I know, me too. I mean, I was too afraid to fly. Like, I felt like
you're trapped kind of, and then everywhere you go it's like, oh, just give me your residency, just give me your carte d'identità, and and you don't have one, and so you're constantly blocked. And again, then you're questioning, why have I done this to myself?
And then people think that they're like, oh, you could just get a job, like, you know, oh, it's Italy, people pay you in nero, no, like under the table. They don't. Like, even waitresses now, it's like, are you legal? And because I remember when I first came, I thought, oh, I could just pick up some waitressing jobs, or even like being a dishwasher. I think at one point I was like, I just want to throw myself into this culture.
Like anything.
And it doesn't matter, because I had the visa to stay, but not to work, and I thought I could.
How did I even find my first jobs? Like pagine gialle.
Oh, really?
Online.
Really?
Like the Italy yellow pages, calling schools, and I didn't speak Italian, so I was calling these schools and being like, parli inglese, and they'd be like, I guess so. It's an English language school, but who are you? And then I would just sort of be like, I'm looking for a job. And my only skill, I mean, I took a teacher certification class, which was a month-long class, which everyone said you don't need to do. You just need the TEFL, which is like the online certification you can do, way cheaper, way easier. You can do it from home before you come. So I did the TESOL course, which was a month-long course in Rome. And it was very expensive. not a single person ever looked at that certificate.
Really?
Not one person that I got a job with ever. But I felt I needed to do it for my own confidence.
You're so good.
Because otherwise, I mean, I already felt like, who am I to try to teach English to anybody? And so that helped.
I thought that too as well. And then I remember, because I was teaching back in Rome as well, and then I remember like listening to one of the people in the rooms beside me. You know how you all have your little booths.
Like little cells.
And I was like, that's not a noun, that's an adjective, you know what I mean? And I was like whatever. Okay, so because some of the schools, they only require that you have a degree, right?
Yeah.
And then you're just listening to other, and you're like, just because you're an Anglo-Saxon doesn't mean you know about grammatical structure.
Anyway, I found that very helpful, although expensive, and managed to cobble together some jobs, basically. But I never found one English school that I could support myself on. Actually, I could barely support myself on 2 or 3 combined. And probably part of this was because I was doing everything under the table. So I had no bargaining power.
Right.
I had just arrived. I was 22. You know, it was sort of like, will you give me anything? And they were like, okay, you can do 2 hours a day for like €9 an hour. And you're like, okay, how am I supposed to pay rent with this or buy food and things like that? And you just have to be ready to really, no one is going to help you. And everyone is going to help you actually at the same time. It's like, you're not going to find the job that gives you training and enough money and everything is going to work, but you're surrounded by people that will react positively to the fact that you are here because you love the country so much.
Exactly.
Because they're going, why did you move here? What are you thinking?
I know.
And you're like, it's Italy. And they're like, oh, you poor thing. Like, you've been infected by Italy and you need help, you know. So that's how I felt after a year. It was like, I can barely make it from one month to the next.
Yeah.
But I'm not, if I left now, I would be I would not have done what I wanted to do here, whatever that was. I just needed another year, kind of. And then after the end of the second year, it was just one more year. And so every year was one more only, maximum.
Right.
I never moved here, I'm going to live here forever.
Really?
Until about like 7 years in, I was like, I live here.
Fine.
I do, okay?
I remember whenever I would fly away, even for some little job or like even a little vacation outside of Italy, and then I come back in and I get in the taxi and I would just be like, oh yes, you know, this is my home, you know? And it was like this fun, smug little feeling of like, I live here now, you know, because it's almost like you contextualize your life in Italy, in the world, and you think, this is, I've earned this, like I've really earned this, like, you know, because it's like I may not have because I mean, only just recently got my European passport, but until then, people think that it's so easy for Australians and Americans, and it's just not. Like 3 months, that is all you get. 3 months and you can't work, you know, you're a tourist. And when you have a study visa, sure, that's like maximum like 6 months to a year. And then even my sister got rejected for a study visa. So it's
which is like, how? I am going to study. Like, so why are you going to stop me from doing that?
Yeah, she didn't even want to take anyone's job, but she just had all the all the paperwork and everything for the school and got rejected, and no reason. Like, they were so rude.
That's the same experience as a friend of mine. I had a school helping 2 people in the school that were both Americans going to the same consulate with the same school, so the same paperwork, the same lawyer helping them. They went the same month to the consulate.
Wow.
The consulate rejected both of them, and then a month later wrote to one of them and said, actually, you're accepted.
It's crazy, huh? Yeah.
Okay. That's how random it is. That's how random it is to succeed as well. You don't, that's why you can't, you need a plan, but you have to know that plan's going to change, because things like that happen.
It's not merit-based, you know? Yeah, exactly. And I remember even being at the consulate and being in tears and so frustrated. But I don't know, for some reason it's like, why do we keep going? Because we love it.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I keep asking myself.
Maybe
something
we
wrong
like
with us.
it.
We're masochistic.
No matter what you're doing in your day, you are feeling like you're really living, right? There's not a year that goes past when you think, oh, I haven't done anything with my life. You're always thinking, I am out there living the highs and lows of a human being.
Exactly. Every moment. Because also then the highs and lows change. Like you, after 6 months, you have a little like witty banter with the coffee barista person, and you're just like, I have done everything. I am the best. I can speak words to people. I'm amazing.
And you hear this this swelling soundtrack of like, this is the moment, this is the montage in the film where she's like, she gets her life together, you know? And you're like walking through the piazza or you're riding and you're just like, this is the moment now where suddenly it all clicks and it falls into place, and it kind of does, and then the next day it's like
completely falls apart again, and you're like, okay. Starting again. But you constantly moving here and probably moving to many a foreign country constantly forces you to make conscious, active decisions about your life. Why am I doing this? Is this what I want to do? Here's another fork in the road. Which am I going to take? You cannot get into a comfortable routine and get stuck doing the same thing and suddenly find that 10 years have passed and you never wrote the book that you wanted to write because you were just going to your job every day because you don't have a job. because you're constantly changing. You're constantly being forced to grow and evolve. So you're kind of, you're in a different soil.
I don't know, do you think it's like a kind of like no pain, no gain kind of mentality? Like
Maybe.
I think both you and I have that kind of, like also with our art, not to sound too pretentious, but we, you know, in our creativity, right? Unless this is a struggle, I can't be growing or I can't be evolving, and maybe that's what attracts us to the whole expat experience. Is it is a struggle every day,
a growth opportunity every second. Oh my God, yeah.
But the truth is, you're in a really beautiful relationship as well with an Italian, which for a lot of people, particularly women, let's be honest, is a part of the dream. And then I find after a year or two, women normally get very disillusioned with dating here, and that's not their fault. I think it's just that sort of cross-cultural relationship is always going to be a challenge, no? Well, and I think that's part of the, you know, if you're imagining moving to Italy, it's because of all the beautiful dream things that are,
you know, an amazing Italian man and a Vespa and the beauty of the Duomo and the sunset. Yeah. And, you know, when things don't go as you'd hoped, it's more, I feel maybe, I don't know if it's more disappointing, but because you don't have a community of friends and your hometown or even your native language or your family and familiar things around you, when things don't work, you feel it so painfully because, you know, when I first moved here and I had an Italian boyfriend, and the start of the Dolce Vita, the first week in Rome, I had just arrived and was like, now we're going to be together because I'd met him previously, and the first week he tried to break up with me, and I was like, you're the only person I know in the country. So this breakup is not just like, oh, I lost my boyfriend. It would be, I have no person in the country around me.
I know.
To help me, really just to talk to about what I'm going through. And so I didn't let him, basically. I was like, not now. I mean, you have to wait a few months and then we can reevaluate.
Where do you think you're going?
I was like, okay, I just arrived. Can't do this.
No, it's true because and then it makes you reassess, like, am I really in love, or do I really just need someone to help me understand this bolletta, you know, this bill that I, you know, like,
what shampoo do I need? What does balsamo mean? What is this? You can also find that person when you arrive, and it doesn't have to be a romantic partner. Better if it's not, actually, because it's kind of fraught with peril that way.
But maybe you need that. Maybe you need like the I don't know, the kiss on the back of the Vespa to get you through, because no,
like at least I had a romantic evening, and now I spent 10 hours and I made 15 euros.
Yeah, exactly.
So I need another romantic evening of like just strolling through the Piazza Navona or something to like remember why I'm doing this.
They send you a message and you translate it and you're like, me, mang, ki, he misses me, you know, like, and it takes you 15 minutes to work that out. You're like, yes, he misses me.
Or did I miss you? Wait, which one did you write?
Yeah, and you respond and you end up saying, I miss myself.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
You're like, damn, that reflexive. But
Those are all the fun things that, you know, are so, like, just make it every day has little adventures that are just trying to survive, basically.
We both know, like, a lot of people, like some of the people we were talking about of lunch, like, who have just really struggled, and I think that we almost owe it to Italophiles out there to say, hey, you're not a failure if it doesn't work, or if you come for 2 months and you're like, this is hard, this is really hard, I have to go home, or I'm lonely, because. And even Italians can't properly understand that, because they say, oh, well, just go out and make friends, and sure, that's fine, but you've grown up with, like, for 4 generations, your family have always holidayed and socialized with this family, and so they have these ready-made social circles, and so therefore, A, it's difficult to break in, but B, it's very difficult for them to empathize with what it means to make friends.
It can be hard to break into Italian friend groups, that's for sure, I find.
Well, you just got to find these little groups, or like you're really good with reading book clubs, you know.
Find a painting class, or find something that you really care about that is in Italian.
Yeah.
Because the Italians around you will be, I mean, in my experience, have been so kind with my terrible level of Italian as I've been trying to improve over the years.
Someone wrote to me recently actually and said, I did this video on anxiety recently, and they said, oh, well, thank you for this, because I'm over here in Italy and it seems like everyone else is just, it's so easy for them to meet people or just go out and even meet one friend for coffee, and this person said, I'm just really struggling, and all I do is I just eat alone every night, and it's not really how I imagine myself in Italy, you know. And my heart just like broke for this person, because I know what that feels like, and yet I didn't know what. I think the answer is only time, isn't it? Because it's almost like that's a part of it. You have to be like, before people decide to come to Italy, I say, are you really comfortable with your own company? Like, do you love just hanging out by yourself most days, every night, every weekend? How do you feel about that? Because you're not going to be surrounded by all these boisterous, raucous Italians, and you're not going to have a love affair straight away unless you, like, you know, jump into bed with someone who's totally wrong for you.
The ciao bella.
Yeah, exactly.
So always find one of those.
I remember a lot of nights in Rome just...
Here I am alone again in my apartment, but I can't afford to do anything. And I don't know anybody, so I'll just write a short story.
I know.
Like, I'll turn this into art, you know? It's like, all the stories of the first year are like so, you know, angsty, because that's what I was experiencing. Like, I don't know. I've heard some people that are like, oh, the first year in Italy was so magical.
Actually, I was one of those people. My first year was full of invitations to fairy tale balls, long weekends away with big groups of new Italian friends and suitors on yachts exploring Italian islands, and lots of romance and interaction with locals. I think it was my second or third year when I tired of being a social butterfly and craved deeper intellectual stimulation that were more challenging to me, so it's kind of different for everyone.
Maybe you want to go on vacation in Italy, or maybe you want to spend an extended period of time in Italy, but you don't want to live here. You know, and that's totally fine.
And take that pressure off yourself of trying to, like, make money and all the rest of it. Like, just save up for a year and just say, I'm just going to do 2 months, because even 2 months can feel like a lifetime if you're in a foreign country.
No, it's really long. And so it was around year 7 that I was like, it's not concluding this feeling is not going away.
Yeah.
I still love Italy. This is a long-term relationship. But it took obviously a really, really long time because I was teaching English and I did not want to continue doing that forever or even at all. Like I needed that to end, but it kept going because that was the only thing. I tried journalism. Amazing. That did not, lead to tons of money.
Well, like we were saying the last time you were here, and I was saying, gosh, note to anyone out there thinking travel writing or photography or YouTube or anything like that pays, doesn't pay at all unless you're ridiculously connected.
Yeah. It can get you very cool experiences. Yes. A blog at least can do that, but money, no, until you've put in like a decade of hard work on it. Yeah. Then maybe. So don't expect to come here and make, unfortunately, because I was like, I'm going to write for a newspaper and a magazine and all these things. And then each one, I think at the end of the month added up to like €20 total. We're writing from multiple places. So it's like,
and all the pitching takes so long, doesn't it? Because you put together something and they're like, oh, to send us an example, take photos, blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, oh, I'll go and find all these secret restaurants no one's heard of. And then they don't even care. They've got someone in the office in London who they're like, Margaret just went on a trip with her husband and she's already got it covered.
And she's an expert now. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, for the first few years, every time I went back, I would get the same questions that were always like well-meaning questions, but they were like, so how is this going to help your resume? Right. How is this job going to help your career? Right. So you're teaching English because you want to be an English teacher forever. Which was like, what? I mean, first of all, we're not living in a world in which the job you start with is what you're going to do for the next 50 years. Anywhere in the world, that's just not going to happen. But there was this sort of accidental, I think, pressure of like, what is the plan with this, with what you're doing? And it was sort of like, the plan is just to continue having shelter and food in Italy. And then write a book, somewhere with all my free time hustling for jobs. As the years passed, they stopped asking these questions. Because it was like, okay, Lauren has chosen a different type of life.
Same with me. It's like people stopped asking, were you going to come back to Australia? Or people stopped asking, like, does YouTube pay any money? Or because people always ask me, but hang on, let me understand. So do you make money from the advertising on YouTube, or are your videos sponsored? No. I make nothing, and I kill myself trying to do it, and it gives me a lot of joy, even though I'm really exhausted. It forces you to live more in the present, right? Yeah. Because you really are just like ready for anything. You're like, at any moment I could lose electricity. I could be a social failure. Even with friends, like you can say, I have this wonderful group of friends now, but in 6 months,
they could all move away.
Like, so then even the friendships you make, there can be really, like you can't cling on to them forever, right? Like you could in your hometown, perhaps.
Well, it forces you to be adaptable and to be a lot tougher than you thought you could be. Because I'm like the most sensitive person. So I'm easily offended, I'm easily upset, I take everything personally, and then I think about it for days, and then I journal about it, and then I'm like, it's actually fine. Then I work out. But so much time is spent doing this. And so I'm like the worst person to have moved to Italy because it's, rejection here, no money there, everything that you found comforting. All the friends I made when I first came here have all left. And you just learn, I can handle it. Like, before I came here, I thought, I wish I could do this, but I can't. I wish I could do this, but I can't. Even little things. And at least being here and also just getting older. I've learned a lot of good life lessons on how to, I don't know what, handle life.
It gives you this real resilience because you really feel like you're out here alone, right? No one can really understand. Like back home, they're like, oh, I've seen your photos, or it must be beautiful, or oh yeah, it must be difficult with the language, or what always gets me? So people always say, I think I could really pick up Italian. Italian's so easy, you know, like I feel like I understand it when I hear people speak. It's like, great, you know, you try sarcasm, you try irony, you try being at a dinner party where it's like rapid fire Italian. Yeah, no, it's like people always think when they're on holiday, they're like, oh, I pretty much understand what the waiter said. I think I could learn Italian. And it's actually, it's very, very difficult because it's not just the grammar. Have you thought that you might like to use the conditional, or that how often you use the hypothetical, or just how difficult it is to be humorous in a foreign language, because that takes years and years. Being the silent mute at the dinner party who's just like sitting there like thinking, right, so that's the cadence that one needs if you want to try dark humor.
Right, record for later, maybe. Try later and have everyone just be like, oh, interesting. No, like that didn't work at all.
But I remember that shift when I was like, oh, I can now be myself, and I see other foreigners at dinner parties sometimes, or gatherings, and I'm like I can see like this girl over there, and I'm thinking, oh, she's at that stage. I remember that stage where I couldn't express anything of who I was.
Yeah, because that's the hardest part, that you lose your personality completely in Italian.
It sounds so fun, doesn't it?
Because I know, we're just making it like, don't do this.
Yeah, don't come. That's the point where your identity just evaporates and.
This is something that I think has been so nice, that I don't get upset by these things as much now, because I understand that it's part of their culture to just be very direct and to say, this is not how it's done here. Yeah. And if an American were to say that to you, it would be a very rude thing to say. But an Italian is not saying it to be rude. They're just like, I'm going to help you because you obviously don't know what you're doing. Travel and exposure to new things is what opens you, and sharing is what opens you, and I think the whole world needs some more opening and some more sharing right now, instead of closing doors and being afraid of each other.
Yeah, like it really teaches you to realize that the world's not always out to get you, and sometimes it feels like that, especially on social media. It can feel like that because it's like people want to correct you as soon as they see anything, like this is wrong, or this is like the way you're living your life is, you know, people correcting mothers on how they're parenting, and all I mean, everyone's got some experience of that, no? But then I think here it's like when you're an expat, you're such an observer, right? Like you're living kind of like a loner, just looking at at this culture and thinking, tick tick, let me in. How do I get in? And thinking, but I think it makes you less arrogant, because you come from a place of thinking, how can I adapt to you guys, as opposed to just pushing my identity and my viewpoint on you. And I think that's what I see, and that with the people, the expats who have lasted, are the ones who have said, hey, I'm going to be a little bit more malleable, and it doesn't mean you have to let go of who you are. It just, because you'll never really let go of who you are. Like we've all got a bit of space inside our identity, I think, to say, I'll take in someone else's opinions, or someone else's way of living or cooking this thing, or
you can adapt to be a little more that way. You can see differences and go, I really don't like how that is, and I'm not going to do that. And but there's nothing wrong with it. You know, there's not a right way and a wrong way to do anything.
It's just like this wonderful way to live, because you're always stimulated, you know, like every single day of my life I'm like passing something, or I'm learning something, and I love to be in that constant state of learning. The beauty is gratuitous, and it is infinite, and it feeds your soul in a way that I personally never tire of. Sometimes I'm even walking along and I like laugh to myself like a weirdo. I'm like, Kali, this is still giving you joy, or this is still giving you goosebumps or something. And
that's kind of, I think that speaks perfectly to what we've been saying, which is that you don't come here for your rational mind for rational purposes, but there's times to be rational, and there's also times to be emotional. And again, I think in the Western tradition, we don't we don't prize emotions and feelings and
Yeah.
doing things for your soul. That's all wishy-washy and
Yeah.
like, you know, kind of out there.
Do that on a holiday, but that's not a full-time lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah. And it's sort of, it can be, not just in Italy, it can be anywhere, but it's, if you are someone seeking that soul connection, you will find the place that is right for you.
Yeah.
That maybe is Italy, or maybe is much closer to home, but you'll always be searching for it. So, and if you are always searching for it, you will find it.
Yeah. It doesn't sound very exciting. Whatever your date is for leaving, push it back by 6 months.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Save money, learn more of the language, like suss out more jobs that you can do remotely.
Yeah.
Try and set yourself up for imagining that you will meet no one and have no way of making money.
Yeah. Exactly. You need to be kind to your future self. Don't throw your future self into a crazy scenario. I mean, when I think about how I moved here, it was like in the most unprepared way possible. And so that's why it was so hard for so many years, because I couldn't speak Italian, I couldn't figure out how to do anything. It just was such a challenge, and it was sort of like, maybe I didn't need to go through such a challenge if I had like prepared a bit more.
Yeah.
Who knows, but you know if you're ready or not. So to jump into it, I think.
Yeah. If you've just watched this video, maybe you'll probably be thinking that you're not ready. You'll be like, damn,
These girls are insane.
that sounds like a struggle. Life in the office cubicle really isn't that bad.
I'll just watch Under the Tuscan Sun again. Find a different ending.
Try London. Make life easy for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Don't do this. Maybe find a new hobby.